those that have taken some time out of their day to join the session. As you can see on screen, my name's Youssef Ajarid, Business Development Manager here at Optimus. Over the last few months, I've been working closely with Mohan and the team at Julian Harris to launch the new partnership for surveys with us, which is an extremely exciting time. And in conversations with Mohan, we've agreed to host a session today just to talk advisors through the survey conversation generally, and just to give a little bit of insight into, firstly, why surveys have become such a prevalent part of the mortgage advice process and the home buying journey, and also just to share some information and hopefully some insight into any advisors that aren't currently utilizing this service within their business and how we can potentially change that moving forward. Just a little bit of an introduction to myself. I've been with the business for 4.5 years, exclusively working with mortgage brokers in that time. Around 2.5 to 3 years ago, I helped Optimus with the launch of our surveys proposition with one of our key introducers at Money Supermarket. So I've had a really strong insight into the referral side of the business with our mortgage brokers, direct to consumer as well, and some of the queries that home buyers have directly to me, as I spent a lot of time providing quotes and then also shadowing our service team. So as a contact for you all, I'm hopefully very well placed to support your business with surveys moving forward, answering any questions that you've got, and just ensuring that we can maximize the opportunity. In terms of the structure for today's session, there's going to be 4 key segments to the call that I'll be running through. So to kick the session off, we'll talk through just a couple of objectives that I wanted to hopefully achieve by the time we finish the session. We'll look at why home surveys are important, and why as a broker it's a topic that should be brought up on most appointments that are taking place. It's not always going to be plain sailing, as we know. It is a service ultimately that clients have discretion over, but nonetheless we'll hopefully be able to collectively overcome those. And lastly, we'll just spend some time giving a bit more of an oversight to who Optimus are, kind of what our service looks like, and how we're able to assist moving forward. We've got a few advisors on the call. Just before going any further, I wondered if people are able to use the kind of raise their hand button on the top. Is there anybody that's not currently working with any survey providers and therefore is going to join the call today to hopefully start, just as a show of hands really, if possible? Greg, fantastic, thank you. Ashwin as well, thank you, that's great. 2 more than I was hoping for. I know sometimes on these calls people feel like it's more of a case of sort of joining to see what else is out there, but no, Greg and Ashwin hopefully be able to take something really kind of useful away from the session today. For those of you that have got something in place, that's absolutely fine, and very happy to welcome you on the session. There may well just be some points that you can take away to maybe tweak things, or even if it's just to understand who Optimus are and what we offer in comparison to anybody you currently recommend, that's absolutely fine with me. We'll do a little bit of a round the room when we finish the call in terms of understanding how everybody felt about the session. And lastly, just some housekeeping. I know we're booked in for about 45 minutes, so that should be plenty of time today. Happy to take questions at the end of the session. I appreciate there will be lots of information to consume. If anybody has got something urgent that they want to ask, please feel free to speak out. But if we could take questions towards the end, it would just allow me to deliver all of the information, and then we can review anything when we finish the slides. Okay, so moving forward in terms of today's session, and in terms of what I'm hopeful we'll be able to collectively take away. First things first, as the presenter, I'm hoping everybody will be able to feel more comfortable with introducing surveys to their customers. Greg and Ashwin, as you've just put your hands up, if it's not something that you're currently engaging with your customers on, then I'm hopeful we'll be able to reach a point where, following the session, you're willing to introduce the service more frequently. For the brokers on the call, of course, hopeful that you will all be a bit more comfortable with understanding the kind of different ways of actually eliciting a conversation, as opposed to having a standard framework. Maybe there are a few ways of broaching this topic of surveys, so we'll walk through that, and then collectively we'll then spend some time just talking through how Optimus can obviously become a trusted partner for the Julian Harris business, for anybody that's got a survey related inquiry moving forward. So we'll keep all of those in the back of our minds as we progress through the call. So just to kick things off, really, just to, I guess, take a couple of steps back, really, there's going to be a mixture of kind of opinions and experience with regards to surveys on the call. I'm sure everybody here today has either commissioned a survey for maybe their own property, or in some way or another seen a survey report, or has referred a survey. I'm sure somebody falls into one of those categories. But I think from my experience of running these sessions, when I've spoken to brokers before, sometimes the importance of a survey can kind of be missed, and sometimes it kind of gets glossed over because most lenders will offer a free valuation. Some brokers have told me in the past that they simply just don't have the time to really look into it. So just wanted to spend some time actually talking through, why is a home buyer survey, or just a generic home survey, whether that's a level 2 or a level 3, which we'll come on to, why is that so important? And as we all know, a survey is really designed to give a buyer an insight into the property that they're ultimately investing in. And for first-time buyers, spending the largest amount of capital that they'll ever have done so far, on something, on an asset. It also has become, I think, in the last 18 months, really, as I've been a BDM, become a huge opportunity for mortgage brokers as well, from a revenue perspective, because we know that transaction times are taking longer and longer now. Procuration fees are obviously being delayed, and so third-party services like surveys have become really critical in supporting cash flow. That's ultimately one area of why it's so important, but we can't forget that obviously the primary objective is to ensure that that client's purchase is protected and that they have a full overview of what they're buying before they actually exchange contracts. Looking forward to the session, as we've already spoken about, we'll also look at some of the reasons why brokers should sell surveys, how to actually start that conversation, as I already alluded to, and I'll also explain the opportunities and on how you can actually refer that business over to Optimus. Okay, so completely understand that title of this slide appears to be teaching everyone on the call how to suck eggs, but just to get that out there, this is really not meant to be in any way obvious in terms of what a survey is. I didn't want to go back to basics, but really it's just to I guess give you an idea as to how we kind of cover all bases as a business.
You're going to have a shower. Oh, sorry. And then as you're ready, is my shirt on drying?
Sorry, Mohan, I don't know if we can maybe mute that person.
It's Optimus thing.
Oh, right. Playing the CPD.
Yeah, it's intense. Put a minute in the back, mad.
Is Malcolm on it?
I don't know.
He doesn't like doing different things.
Excellent, thanks for that. Sorry, just to go back to what I was saying, in terms of how we support clients here at Optimus, we typically work off this chart which shows the comparison between a level 2 and a level 3 survey, and we have this training material available to provide to brokers before a quote is provided to a client. But In terms of a survey, as we all know, it's an inspection of a property's condition, and the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors essentially set a number of standards of which surveyors have to comply with, and that forms the foundation of our network as well. We ensure that all of the surveyors that represent Optimus are RICS qualified, as you would expect, but also it also just testifies that we're working with the highest competence of industry standards as well as a business, and ensuring that the work is carried out to the highest standards. At Optimus, we offer the two main survey types as most providers will do, which is a level 2 survey and a level 3. For those that maybe aren't speaking to clients about surveys regularly, previously these were home buyer reports and full building surveys. The terminology changed around September 2023 by RICS, so we now refer to these as a level 2 and level 3. Not everybody is aware of that when we speak here at Optimus about level 2s and level 3s, so it's just important to cover those off. Later on in the presentation, I will also walk you through some of the different survey types that we have available. It's a really key part of not just our business but the market now, where we're starting to find that lenders are requiring specialist work to be carried out. I had an inquiry through from an introducer yesterday on a semi-commercial property for an asbestos report. I believe it was a salon with a residential flat above, and the lender said just due to the loan to value they required an asbestos report to be carried out. So that's just the type of work that we're able to assist with, but predominantly as we go through the slide it will be home surveys that we'll be discussing this morning. So why is survey such an important topic to be discussing with clients now? To be honest, the main reason is to help build trust with that client that you're there to support their investment as a home buyer. Surveying is become an aspect of property that for some parts of the market has, as I mentioned earlier on, become under prioritized in favor of just getting more deals through, or for some brokers prioritizing protection, which of course is extremely important. But ultimately for some clients with especially older properties, non-standard construction types now, we are finding that some brokers are just concentrating on the mortgage advice. Client maybe doesn't know what a survey is if they're a first-time buyer. Nowadays, estate agents typically don't want to get involved in surveys because of fear of jeopardizing the sale. It's now fallen on the responsibility of either the mortgage lender or a broker to advise the client of a survey. And some of the lenders we're speaking to, and especially solicitors, solicitors are saying now that the regulations are changing and becoming more in depth around things like the Building Safety Act. There are more hoops to jump through in terms of certificate of titles that they need to be concerned about. So it's now almost the responsibility of a mortgage broker to make sure that the client has at least considered a survey. By introducing that conversation to the client, you're immediately building trust that you've got their best interests in mind. And I'm sure for all of us who are on the call today, we've all seen those horror stories of a buyer that hasn't had a survey. They move into the property, they then are faced with £1,000 worth of repair bills, and it's a really great way of preserving that client relationship as well for future business and future referrals, by simply just introducing them to the value of having a survey, and talking them through why that's important, and we'll go into that in just a moment. The other angle, of course, is commercially what that looks like for a mortgage advisor. Through Optimus and the partnership with Julian Harris, every mortgage advisor can earn up to £100 from a completed referral. Given the delayed transaction times as well in the market, as we all know, recently is reported it now takes up to 152 days for a standard purchase to complete. Survey sales can be a great way of bridging that gap between the client, the beginning of the advice process, and your procuration fee being received. And ultimately, of course, the more survey sales that are made, the bigger the pipeline will be And the more we can close the gap until the case completes. Apologies, I had a bit of a technical issue there. Press the wrong button. I'm just going to go back to the slide that we were on. We've also spoken about introducing the survey earlier on in the process, and one of the conversations I have with the majority of my introducers is actually, if as a broker you're leaving a client to potentially arrange their survey on their own accord, what we're starting to see is clients are putting the survey off until as late in the process they can, either because they're busy, they don't know who to speak to, they don't understand the importance of it and think that they'll just leave it, and then before they know it, exchange will happen and they can get the keys. Of course, this is fraught with risk. We have seen that not recommending a survey generally leads to it not being done. There is a direct correlation. Sometimes clients elect to speak to friends and family, and then they get told, oh, I didn't get a survey and I moved in and there was nothing wrong with the house, and I saved myself £500 or however much it might have been. There's always a possibility that they move in, and of course nothing's wrong with the property, but it's always a case of mitigating risk. And for us, we always advocate having that conversation, saying to the client that they can be provided with a no obligation quote via Optimus, and at least if they've considered it, you've done your job as an advisor in ticking that box and making sure that the client's aware, but more importantly made that decision themselves. In terms of eliminating those delays with Optimus, we typically advise to try and get that quote out to the client as early in the process once they've had their offer accepted as possible. This is to allow for any delays with surveyors availability, but also just to get the report back into the client's hands as early as possible. Obviously, a property can look like it hasn't got any issues on the Rightmove advert, which is fine. Buyers can say that they've done a viewing and they haven't uncovered any problems. But as we all know, a survey is carried out objectively by a accredited surveyor who is trained to find problems and to look in places that ordinarily you wouldn't do during a viewing. So the earlier we can get those survey results back to the client, the more time they've got to digest the information, and more often than not raise some additional inquiries through their solicitor. The other angle is, as we've spoken to, it enhances your offering as a mortgage advisor. We know that the job of an advisor now is to wear many hats. Completely understand that, and I'm sure if we were to have direct conversations after this call, you'll all tell me that there's lots of moving parts in terms of the application process before a client even looks at a survey, and I completely understand that. I know it's not easy for every broker to introduce surveys just in terms of time that you have, but as we discussed earlier on, it really helps to build that trust, boost your value proposition when some brokers aren't dealing with surveys, and then obviously adds an additional revenue opportunity for surveys to bridge that gap. We've spoken about mitigating risk. Some brokers simply don't want to engage in a survey discussion with their client because they're worried about it uncovering problems, very similar to estate agents in that sense. But actually, if a client orders a survey with you and then it comes to the point that the survey uncovers an issue with the roof or something that's going to cost a lot of money, think about the potential benefits that may come further down the line in terms of that client telling friends and family that the survey you recommended as a broker helped save them a lot of money in the future, and obviously the trust that that's going to build with the client. For us, it's all about looking at the upside with a survey, and talking to clients about the potential risk of not going forward with a survey. So moving forward, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, there are always going to be challenges with surveys. Some of the common challenges are that the client thinks that I don't need a survey. is probably the number one that comes to mind. Why do I need a survey? The property's new. I've already seen it during the viewing. The estate agent tells me there's nothing wrong. My friends and family didn't get a survey when they bought their house 20 years ago. The list goes on. I'm very well aware that not everybody's also going to take up the offer, but really just wanted to spend the next part of the call talking through some ways in which you can introduce the survey conversation to your clients to try and alleviate some of these challenges and essentially position the survey as something that's essential. So I would suggest in order of what's on the screen, and we'll kind of go through them as you can see. It's all about talking about the key benefits of a survey. We always say here at Optimus, it's an investment, not an expense, because most clients feel like when they receive a quote, it's another insert amount of money that they have to pay. Some buyers haven't budgeted for it. So one of the ways to overcome that challenges would simply be to bring surveys in at the beginning of the fact find. Some of our most successful introducers tell their clients right from the first conversation that they're able to deal with everything for their house purchase, mortgage protection, survey, insurances, so that client is walking away from the first appointment feeling like they don't want to go anywhere else. Give them that option of a survey, take away the responsibility that they'll have for going elsewhere and speaking to friends and family, so that when they do have that conversation, they can tell their friends or their parents, my mortgage broker has told me that they're already dealing with it, and give them frame it with them that it's something that is a necessity for most people, because if they don't get it, there is potential risk further down the line. It's also worth giving them an understanding of what they're purchasing, so talking them through what a survey is, and this is really where Optimus can come in. We say to all of our introducers, we don't expect you to pre-sell a survey. Working with Optimus isn't just about providing a quote, it's about providing some education to your clients about the importance of a survey, explaining what a survey is, explaining why they would be investing in a survey and the benefits for it, which, as we've highlighted in the previous slide, is to prevent hidden repairs and moving in to a property without having somebody inspect the property. Giving them that information. Most providers in the market supply information to their clients, normally via email. We have a phone consultation with every client, and I will go into our referral process separately. But just in terms of that understanding of what a client's buying, it's really important that when the conversation is introduced, you give them a solution on how we can help them. And hopefully by the end of this call, you'll feel more comfortable with introducing Optimus, and then us taking that responsibility for delivering the education, delivering the quote, and giving the client confidence that actually this is an investment that's worthwhile. Another obviously benefit of a survey is to allow buyers to feel confident they're paying the right price for the property. Ultimately, if they commission a survey, there's 10 advisories from the surveyor, and they don't feel like what they've agreed to pay is worth the money, then, or worth the condition of the property, sorry, and then a survey is a really powerful tool to negotiate with the agent. I'll always remember about 12 months ago, the end of last year, we had a client who arranged a level 3 survey with us. There was an issue with the roof, and effectively the advice from the surveyor was to replace the roof. Literally, it was a 1940s property, I believe. They felt like it looked good. It had a full-scale refurbishment. They literally just looked at the open plan kitchen, as you do, the garden, looked at where they were going to put all of their furniture. Surveyor said, yeah, the owners have been living here for 25 years. The property, needs a new roof. Otherwise, it's going to be something you'll need to replace in a year's time. And effectively, the survey saved them £25,000. So these are real life instances that happen, and buyers get very excited, of course, as we all do, about moving into a property. Potentially been on the property market for 6 months, you've got over the hurdle of getting an offer accepted, you just want to think about getting the keys to the property. A survey then becomes increasingly important to make sure that that dream home doesn't turn into something much worse. So protecting the property is of vital importance when it comes to this type of conversation. We've discussed repair costs, but also whilst it may not be something that prevents the purchase from moving forward, such as a new roof, what it can also do is highlight improvements and work to do in the property. Okay, so not everything that a survey is going to provide is going to be preventative. A lot of the time, clients that we speak to want peace of mind. And just knowing that actually the property looks to be in good condition, and sometimes that could be just as powerful as preventing a costly repairs bill after they complete. So that's the surveys piece so far, summarized in terms of why it's important, what actually is a survey for those that aren't currently introducing this conversation, and what are some of the risks in terms of not recommending a survey to your customers. Once we've got the customer to a position where they feel like they understand why a survey would be important and they're willing to engage in receiving quotes, as we've already touched on, the whole premise of working with a provider is to make the process convenient for the customer, to save them time with having to secure multiple quotes elsewhere, and to be convenient with calling the customer at a time that works for them. Optimus are then there as a partner through Julian Harris to help you all as advisors with making your life as easy as possible. All that we're asking is for, at this point, as an advisor, to introduce the conversation. If a client understands the upside of a survey, that's when Optimus come in and support you as advisors with seeing the client through to having their final report sent to them by a surveyor. Now, I'm conscious that some advisors on the call may not know much about Optimus and have joined today hoping to learn a little bit more about who we are as a business. To give everybody an understanding of who we are as a company, we've been trading in the market since July 2019 as a panel management provider. And in that time, we're well into 6 figures now of successful transactions that we've helped with people moving house, selling, and everything in between. As I alluded to, in my tenure here at Optimus, I've supported our clients at Money Supermarket, who we all know as one of the leading comparison services on the internet. That's a relationship that's grown strength to strength, where we now deal with over 90% of the inquiries that come through their website. In the mortgage market, we also look after a specialist mortgage broker called Hasto. So they typically deal with a lot of non-standard work as well, which has broadened our capacity in our network. And also in the estate agency space, we deal with Yopa, who are one of the largest digital estate agencies, and they've been one of the earliest adopters of Optimus. So 3 really exciting partnerships that we have alongside Julian Harris, of course. Underpinning all of our business is customer service, and whilst tech is very important in our industry, we've focused on ensuring that we have the right people in place, and everybody that you engage with within the company has got previous property industry experience, which kind of underpins our service delivery and just helps us to relate with the customers that we deal with every single day. And a key thing in our market is fees and transparency, which is why we've got a fixed price rate card. So no matter where you are in the country, it's a single price for a level 2 survey in each price banding. And again, that's something that we can discuss on an individual basis after the session. And as I already reflected on earlier in the call, we have grown really through demand. Our surveys network now to over 500 surveyors, and that's only growing exponentially as more and more brokers look for a trusted provider, and more surveying firms appreciate the work that we can do in terms of offering the advice to the customer, and delivering the bookings for them. Something a little bit different for Optimus compared to some other providers in the market is that we are part of a much larger organisation, and the organisation is the Landmark Information Group, which is a company into its 30th year. The hierarchy of our business is on the right hand side of the chart, and as you can see in the top right hand corner, we are sort of supported by what we like to call as the big mothership, which is the Daily Mail General Trust, who are a venture capitalist who've invested significant capital in the Landmark Group, and more importantly, revolutionising how property is transacted. And for those that are interested in what the future of the property market looks like, we recently founded something called a Project 28 Charter, which I would recommend everybody to look at, and I can send you over the link if you'd prefer. But the Charter's brought together 20 founding organisations who have all committed to a new blueprint for changing how property is transacted, with the aim of reducing transaction times to 4 weeks, hence Project 28. Now, as you can see on the screen, there are 12 other companies partnered with Optimus, and through the data, the infrastructure, and the technology we have at Landmark, we were one of the only businesses in the industry that could connect all the people that's needed to actually make a difference to how transactions are made. And what we've done is we've brought together some of the biggest estate agency groups, the biggest lenders, and the biggest technology providers, and other parts of the market, and set out 8 commitments that everybody would be abiding by, with a view to changing how the market works. So it's an incredibly exciting time. Obviously, surveys plays an important part in that journey, but just to give everybody on the call some confidence in who you're partnering with and why Julian Harris has selected us, we are leading a change, an industry change, and the government have recognised our efforts. We were cited in the home buying and selling reform last week that was announced, and whilst that will take some time to come into force, it was really encouraging that the government cited some work that Optimus and Landmark have been commissioning over the last couple of years. And it's a really exciting time to be joining our journey as brokers, when we can hopefully start to make a difference to you all, in terms of the work that's already being done. Normally, when we introduce Optimus at this point, I'm sure there's going to be questions, of course, on the business and maybe some of the other companies. So if anybody does have a question for me, again, just to reiterate, I'm happy to take it at the end of this call, and of course happy to pick anything up offline as well after the call's ended. So taking aside Optimus as a business, and now that everybody's a bit more familiar with who we are, how do you go about referring business to Optimus? We understand that every property transaction is unique and it's different, and sometimes it is difficult to know when the right time is to actually instruct a survey. That's where we can come in and take away that responsibility for you. And all that we ask is for that initial interest to be generated with your client, for them to understand why a survey is important. We will then handle the rest of the process. And I would urge every broker to hopefully trust us in being able to deliver that. We complete a significant number of instructions every single month, and we've got a sales and service team of 15 individuals in our office in Bristol, who deal with our quotes, who deal with our service, and who deal with our aftercare to make sure the process works as seamless as possible. So there's really minimal involvement and complication on your part. As I said, this is an amazing opportunity to boost revenue, to build trust of your clients, and to ensure that their investment is protected as best as we can. So in terms of how the referral process works, We ask that all advisors complete our unique referral link, which provides the client and property information. And this is a unique referral form for Julian Harris. So whenever you send the form through to us, we'll know that the lead has come from your network, and obviously your individual details will be on there. We have a service level agreement of contacting every quote within 4 hours. We believe that's at least 50% faster than the majority of the market. We believe that speed is critical, especially with surveys, and for any clients that leave the surveys to the last minute, we could potentially call, a lot sooner than 4 hours upon request. We then make a call to the client, introducing Optimus and advising that we've been asked to contact them by their mortgage broker, and we'll typically give your details as well, just to build that initial trust. We talk through the property. We normally bring up the property advert. We understand why the client's looking for a survey. Is it for peace of mind? Is it for something more specific? Sometimes there is a different type of survey that we may recommend. Maybe it's an additional valuation, but we make sure that we tailor the quote to the client's needs. We would then send out all of the details to the client, and if our quote's accepted, we deal with the invoicing to the client, which involves sending the invoice, taking the payment, and then instructing the survey through to the local surveyor. All of our instructions are made within 24 hours of booking. So again, we try and get those details through to the surveyor as quickly as possible. That gives them enough time to then call the estate agent, arrange access to the property, and secure the earliest booking. And then, of course, once the booking's completed, we make the payment to your network, who would then finalise the remittance with you. And if there are any questions, I would recommend speaking to the compliance team following the call, and they can talk you through the payment side of things. As we've spoken about through this call, we will predominantly be able to help with level 2 and level 3 surveys, but just to illustrate the range of surveys that we're also able to help with away from the traditional home surveys, column 2 in the middle provides a list of specialist work that I've alluded to a couple of times during the session so far. Asbestos reports being one more recently that we've assisted with, but out of the list, damp and timber reports are becoming increasingly common now, especially as we move towards what some experts are predicting is a sort of a remortgage boom at the end of this year and early part of next year. For some lenders, remortgaging clients, they may well ask for a damp and timber survey rather than a full report. But also we're noticing some lenders don't have the capacity anymore to send a surveyor out to a property. So the need to have a specialist report carried out for a lender is becoming, as I said, more common, more prevalent. So this is an area we can help with. Again, avoiding those roadblocks as a broker. If you do receive comments back from a valuer or an underwriter, you would be able to come to Optimus immediately and ask us for a quote, and it just means that client's mortgage offer isn't delayed any later than it needs to. We all know normally when an underwriter requests a report, they're going to need exactly the requirements that they've set out fulfilled before they'll review the application again in the property. So the quicker we can get the report done, the quicker the client can receive their offer, which is obviously the main objective. And then on the right hand side, again, the common valuation types. Help to Buy valuations, still we are getting inquiries through, but I think the majority of equity loans have come up for renewal maybe the early part of this year. There's probably a few more that will stagger through the next few months, but we offer a fixed price on Help to Buy valuations with some really great availability, and for any clients staircasing as well, we can also provide a valuation to the local authority, to the housing association, for shared ownership purposes. And I always caveat this particular slide by saying if there are any additional surveys that are needed, EWS1 forms, for example, on high-rise blocks for any brokers that typically work in large cities, we may have some limited availability for EWS1 forms, and anything else niche that you come across, please feel free to contact me. I always say that I'd like to hear about it and say no, and then for a broker to assume we can't deal with it, and in fact we can. So I'll always let you know normally within the same working day if we can help, and at least that box has been ticked, and you're able to move forward. But hopefully that gives some more opportunities for advisors on the call, maybe those that have got a provider already that maybe can't help with some of the specialist reports. We've got a full suite of products we can help with. Everything's in one place for you just to make your life easier as well. And this is the penultimate slide. So just really to sort of summarize what we've spoken about during this call. For any completed referral fee, an additional £100 can be earned. For any specialist reports, this is capped at £50. Typically, the cost price to the client is less than a full survey. So therefore, to keep the cost price competitive, we cap the referral fee at £50. We've discussed about speed, and speed is really split into two. It's about the delivery of the survey from the surveyor's side, from receiving the booking through to booking in an inspection. We target our surveyors to try and book that in as quickly as possible, aiming for an appointment no later than 7 to 10 days post instruction. And in this marketplace, some smaller surveying firms, may find those turnaround times extended. Whereas with us, as we've spoken about, we have got an extensive network of surveyors we can reach out to. But also the speed on the quoting side as well, sending that quote through to us as early as possible, providing a quote to the client within 4 hours, and having that telephone conversation just speeds up how quickly customers can get the survey information and a quote. And last but not least, partnering with Optimus gives you, as a mortgage broker, and your clients exposure to our expertise. This is something that our survey sales team are dealing with on a daily basis, with regular training from our surveying firms on current RIC standards and regulations. So we're able to deliver the best advice to your customers. As we've spoken about, we have a phone consultation with every single customer. Every one of our sales consultants is trained to answer questions on different survey types, ensuring that they can explain what the client is buying, what the differences are between different survey types, and educating your client on exactly what they're purchasing. That's everything from me in terms of the information I'd like to present. I'm happy to open the floor now, to any questions based on the information that you've received so far. Ashwin, I can see you've got your hand up. I'm not sure if that's been from one of the previous slides, so apologies if it was. But happy to take the question now if you'd like to ask. No? I'll take the question offline from Ashwin. Greg, I appreciate at the beginning of the call you mentioned by putting your hand up that it's not something that you've previously had as an opportunity with your customers. Having seen the call so far in the session, how do you feel moving forward about the survey conversation?
Well, I always recommend people have a home buyers as a minimum sort of thing. Yeah. Basically, where I'm in mid Wales, so it's fairly limited as far as firms of surveyors.
Okay.
The main surveyor in the town is also the estate agent, so there's I generally recommend him if the people aren't buying the house from him.
Yeah.
And I've had a long relationship with him over the years. But if someone's buying from him, I haven't really had anyone to recommend.
Yeah.
So it's something I would be interested in. So yes.
Brilliant.
My only question was I've found with some of these big companies they find it difficult to find a surveyor in sort of mid Wales.
Yeah.
It's a fairly we're at the middle of nowhere, and a lot of surveyors don't want to travel very far.
Yeah. No, it's a fair point, Greg, and it'd be similar to some of our clients, places like Cumbria and Cornwall, of course, which are similarly remote areas.
I was based in the Lake District previous to being
Were you?
here.
Oh, lovely part of the country. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What I would say is I obviously don't know the specific postcodes that you're alluding to, but we have worked to kind of strengthen our availability in some of those, kind of black spots on the map as such.
Yeah.
And we do always say if there is a surveyor that maybe might say to us it would sort of charge a small concession on top of the normal fee if they've got to travel out of area, because we all know surveyors like to stick in their patch. But we'll always try and find a solution, Greg. And I think given the network we've got and some of the booking requests we have, you'll probably find that we have got agents referring into us and direct customers from mid Wales already. So rather than us not being able to service that business, we have basically a panel team that look at those sort of difficult areas and sort of target them with reaching out to firms in the area to see if they want to come on our panel, or if they can take ad hoc business. So to summarize, I would always say, look, let me know if you've got a requirement. We'll have a look and see if we've got somebody in the area or the closest option that we've got. But chances are we've maybe got contacts with more people than that you maybe already have got. So we can hopefully make some effort. And of course, if you ever get a client buying, somewhere else, of course, if they're moving out of area, then obviously you can still help them, because it's one contact that covers the whole country with Optimus. So also worth keeping that in mind.
I've got a couple of other questions. Do you do radon reports? We have radon over this way a little bit. Sometimes surveyors, the blender surveyor may go out and ask for a radon report if it's in a radon listed area.
Yeah, radon gas is sometimes it's down to the surveyor's kind of discretion on whether they can report on it, because you can buy a radon meter that can tell whether the property is exposed to the gas at all, as opposed to a surveyor going out in person and inspecting for it, which can be a bit more difficult. The surveyor may say, look, it's not really worth paying my time to go out with my own meter and do it. So there may be more cost-effective ways of doing it than arranging a surveyor to go out, in all honesty.
In the past, sometimes they've asked for it to be monitored.
Yeah. And again, and sometimes that could be...
That's one thing and one question, but
okay.
I know there are people that do it. But
yeah,
what's a Mundic report?
Mundic block testing is a type of material that's typically found in coastal regions, and I believe it measures the impact of certain materials and how properties can subside depending on the air quality and things like that. So parts of Cornwall, for example, are really prevalent. But yeah, few and far between for them. No, exactly. You typically wouldn't unless you live in a coastal area. So more geo-specific those types maybe compared to, for example, I live on the M4 in Wiltshire, which is not coastal, so we wouldn't have any idea for it. But again, unless you live on the coast, you're not going to encounter it too often.
Okay.
But no, thanks for those questions. I think there was one in the chat that I noticed from John. Hi, John. Is your level 3 the equivalent of a full structural survey? So at a level 3, the wording has changed from a full building survey. We have to be careful saying it's a full structural survey, because when a buyer or a lender requires a structural report, sometimes that can be a specific requirement for a structural engineer. So if there's signs of structural movement, for example, if it's a non-standard build, then a lender may say, I need a full structural survey, which is a structural engineer who can comment on the structural integrity of a property. So it's a really key distinction that we have to make. A level 3 is a full building survey, so it is an in-depth report. It is intrusive, John, yes. But there are still guidelines that the surveyor abides by as per the RICS kind of handbook. So we deal with both, by the way, and what I would normally recommend is whenever that comes to light, we would have a conversation just to identify if there's value or comments from the lender, in which case they'll say we need a certain type of accreditation, which is normally like MRICS or FRICS rather than RICS. Or if it's a level 3, then yes, we can help with those.
I understand. Thank you.
No worries, John, but thank you for the question.
You haven't given us any idea of the costs of the surveys.
Yeah,
Is that something you
not
can do?
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. And I would probably recommend just at this point, it was not intentional, nothing to hide. By the way, we do have a fixed rate card. So how our rate card works is we have property bandings for every £100,000 increment. So there's one cost for a level 2 and level 3. We have a rate card that Mohan, I'm sure, is happy for us to send out. I think it may have been distributed before, Greg. But following the call, I'm more than happy to send that out to you directly, along with anybody else who'd like to see it.
Yes, please.
You're welcome. Absolutely no problem at all. Full disclosure from our side, we're happy to be transparent. Jamie, what would you like to ask? Still on mute if you weren't aware. Might come back to Jamie. Jamie, if you wanted to...
Is that better?
Yes, it is. There we go. Fantastic.
I'll learn how to use this thing one day.
No
I've
worries.
only been using it for how many years?
No,
We've all
that's
done
fine.
it. We've all done it.
You should see me on Trigold. No, I used to train on that. That's okay. Yeah, false RICS 3 seems to be another layer that's put in because full structural surveys, the surveyor used to be responsible or liable for 12 months. So if there's anything that came back, the person who instructed them, obviously the owner, could go back to the surveyor and say, you missed this. I guess then that RICS 3 is just another level that's been put in between old home buyers and a full structural survey. So is a RICS 3 surveyor liable for the information they've given for a period of time or not?
Yeah, my understanding is that, yes, that 12-month liability is still in place. However, I'm not sure about the varying levels of survey changing. So RICS level 2, as you mentioned, was the old home buyer reports. I wasn't aware that they introduced another level. It was simply just changing from a full building survey to a level 3, and then a full structural survey sort of sits beside a level 3 as a different type of report, specifically if there is concerns about the integrity of a home. Obviously, a level 3 will still look at kind of cosmetic issues as well, but a level 3 is typically if there's a specific structural concern that an engineer will be qualified to advise on, and also as part of a structural engineer's report will be able to give information on how the property can be preserved, improved, or kind of remediated afterwards. Whereas I think a RICS level 3 is a different qualification, so they wouldn't be able to comment on the kind of things like cost of repairs or anything like that, or how the issues could affect the home. So they are two very distinctive reports, and that's why we always need to be careful about commissioning a full structural report, because we need to understand what the intention is rather than just saying yes, full structural report is a level 3.
Right. Okay. So it's not a survey then, it's a report, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
So-
a survey report. Absolutely.
Right.
It's
Okay.
still so a RICS level 3, a full building survey, is still carried out by a chartered surveyor. However,
Right,
a
okay.
full structural report, if that's required,
It's
is
a structural
typically
engineer.
it's a structural engineer, and that's a completely different qualification.
So explain. Could you possibly just explain? Because I don't think I call it up there. The difference between, I mean, might want to take this offline, so I don't want to
Yeah,
bore
no, that's
anybody
okay.
else, because I hate that when that happens to me. The difference between a RICS 2 and a RICS 3 is in
Yep.
regards to the depth of the report, because obviously the client's paying more for it. So
Yep.
what is that going to highlight, which a RICS 3 would highlight and a RICS 2 would not?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate we're slightly over the allotted time, so I'm
Yeah.
happy to
I'm
quickly
more than happy
cover
to
it
take that
off.
off.
No, that's
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But there may be somebody else on the call who's happy with this, and we have this information available, Jamie, in some of our collateral that I can email out. So we have this table. It's a snapshot of the comparative, but you can see here that there are some crosses underneath a level 2. There's some crosses against the level 3 as well, but we kind of send these out to customers to give an indication of what is covered off. So rebuild value, urgent problems are kind of covered off in level 2. If it's a standard construction property, then a level 2 is needed, but if it's non-standard, you'd need a level 3. So we've got this information available that we can send out, and we can also explore this in more detail as well offline if you've got any more in-depth questions on it.
Can we get copies of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, more than happy to disseminate that. That's no problem at all.
Because that's the sort of when I discuss it with clients, that's the sort of questions that clients will ask. Well, what's the why am I
What's the
paying more
difference?
for something? What am I
Yes.
going to get for my money? So
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
good if we actually have that to counter any objections that we may have.
Absolutely, Jamie. And again, for everybody else on the call, we have put together a brochure that you're welcome to send out. It is, of course, Optimus sort of branded, but it does cover off some of the bits we've spoken about during this call on the differences between the two reports. And it also provides some elements of a sample level 3 and level 2 for a client to have an idea of actually what they're buying physically.
Yeah.
Our surveys team, obviously, the reason we make the phone consultations is to kind of put this information into practice as well, because we don't expect brokers to spend loads and loads of time discussing this in depth for us to then do it again on the call. So we can also run through this information, and it's why we advocate sending the client's details over to us to speak to them directly about it.
It's more about building my confidence
trust,
in the product
absolutely.
and trust than actually be able to actually advise my client
Articulate
and say
it,
to them, this is what you need to do. I'd rather do that first before I sell anything, really. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're more than welcome. And again, we're hopeful to be here as a resource as for any advisor. If you've got some areas of surveying that you're not entirely comfortable with, please utilize us. It's obviously what we're here for, as well as providing quotes to the client. As Jamie, you've just said, I'm sure other advisors are in a similar position where you want to feel confident in the service and upskilling yourself first. So that's absolutely fine. We've got collateral that we can send out after the call, to help you with that.
Thank you.
Just because we have slightly overrun, appreciate some advisors may be blocked out until midday. The session has been recorded, so anybody that wants to look back at the session, we can do so. There will most likely be a transcript, I believe, that Mohan will share, and we're also going to distribute the slides from this morning. So if any advisors want a copy of the slides, we'll get those sent out. Mohan, I don't know how we want to distribute kind of my contact details, but I'm happy to have conversations with any advisors following the session to either top up the information that we've shared, or just to kind of look at the next steps in terms of pricing, as Greg's highlighted, and the referral form. But hopefully following this session, if anybody has got clients that are thinking of a survey, we would love the opportunity to provide a quote and just give you an insight into how the service works, because that's normally the best temperature check for any provider, is to give them a go. So final word to me is just thank you for everyone's attendance this morning, for the questions that have been asked. It's been great to meet you all, and for the questions that have been asked, for those advisors, thank you. And if there's anything else, I look forward to hearing from you in due course.
That's great. Thank you for your time, Yusuf, and
Thanks,
Yusuf.
and Mohan for arranging that. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
No worries.
pleasure.
Thanks, John. Thank you for the kind
Yusuf.
words. Have
Thanks,
a great day.
Yusuf.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
Yeah. All the
Bye-bye.
best. Thank you. Bye-bye.